I'm Georgia, and I'm 28. 3 days before Christmas, I walked into my childhood home carrying a suitcase and what I thought was going to be the best holiday in years. Mom had been practically begging me to come home, saying she missed me so much, and that this Christmas needed to be different. So I canceled my plans with Jake, spent nearly every penny I'd saved over 4 months on last-minute airfare, and flew 12 hours across 3 connections to get here. The first red flag should have been Mom's greeting. No hug, no excitement, just a tired, "Oh, you made it," without even looking up from her magazine. The house smelled like vanilla candles and looked like a magazine spread. Everything perfect and pristine. My sister Hannah's kids, 7-year-old Emma and 9-year-old Tyler, were sprawled on the living room floor with tablets, completely absorbed in their screens. "Where's Hannah?" I asked, setting my suitcase by the stairs. "Out," Mom said, still not making eye contact. "She'll be back later." The enthusiasm from all those phone calls had completely evaporated. This version of my mother was distant, almost cold, like I was an inconvenient houseguest who'd shown up unannounced. I tried to shake off the feeling. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe I was overthinking. "The guest room's ready for you," she added, finally glancing in my direction. "I'm sure you're exhausted." I was exhausted, but I'd imagined we'd sit up talking, catching up on months of separation. Instead, she returned to her magazine while the kids ignored my attempts at conversation. The house felt exactly the same, but somehow I was the one who didn't belong anymore. That night, lying in the narrow guest bed I'd slept in countless times before, I stared at the ceiling and tried to convince myself tomorrow would be different. After all, what kind of mother invites her daughter home for Christmas just to ignore her? Surely there was some reasonable explanation. Looking back now, I have to laugh at my own optimism. There was definitely an explanation coming, just not a reasonable one. The second day started with Mom making breakfast for exactly 4 people. 4 plates, 4 glasses of orange juice, 4 sets of silverware. Not 5. 4. When I pointed it out with what I hoped was a light laugh, she seemed genuinely surprised. "Oh, sorry, honey. I guess I'm just used to cooking for the 4 of us." She scrambled me some eggs as an afterthought, serving them on a paper plate while everyone else got the good china. Hannah appeared around noon, breezing in with shopping bags from her morning out, barely acknowledging my presence beyond a quick, "Hey." She was dressed up, makeup perfect, clearly having had quite the pleasant morning while I sat in awkward silence with our increasingly distant mother. "Mom, can you watch the kids tonight? David's taking me to that new steakhouse downtown," Hannah announced, not asked. She kissed the kids goodbye and was out the door before I could even properly say hello. The weirdness continued all day. Mom was going through the motions of hosting, but everything felt rehearsed, like she was following some script. When I tried to make conversation about my recent promotion or asked about her book club, she gave one-word answers while scrolling through her phone. That evening, as we sat pretending to watch a Christmas movie, Mom suddenly straightened up like she'd just remembered something important. "Actually, I have some news," she announced in the same tone she might use to discuss grocery shopping. "I'm leaving tomorrow morning." I paused the remote, sure I'd misheard. "Leaving? Where?" "Pinewood Springs Resort. About an hour north. I've had this reservation for months." She said it so casually, like mentioning she was running errands. "But it's Christmas Eve tomorrow. I just got here." The words came out slower than I intended, my brain trying to process what she was saying. "I know, sweetie, but I really need this break. It's been such a stressful year." The kids didn't even look up from their tablets. Hannah wasn't back yet. I sat there processing the fact that my mother had convinced me to spend my life savings coming home for Christmas, and was now announcing she'd be leaving the next day. But that wasn't even the worst part yet. That bomb was still waiting to drop. Christmas Eve morning arrived with Mom loading her Louis Vuitton suitcase into her car, the same suitcase she claimed she couldn't afford to replace when the zipper broke last year. Funny how these things suddenly fix themselves when vacation time rolls around. Hannah wandered into the kitchen where I was making coffee, looking remarkably relaxed for someone whose mother was abandoning ship on Christmas Eve. "So I'll probably head out around 10, Hannah said, opening the refrigerator and pulling out orange juice like this was any ordinary Tuesday. "Head out where?" I asked, though my stomach was already starting that familiar twist. "To meet Mom at the resort. We're spending Christmas there. Didn't she tell you?" Hannah poured herself juice, completely unbothered by my expression. "The spa has this amazing Christmas package. Couples massage, champagne breakfast, the whole thing." I set down my coffee mug very carefully. "Both of you are leaving." "Well, yeah. The reservation is for 2 adults." She shrugged like this was the most obvious thing in the world. "Plus, someone needs to watch Emma and Tyler. They can't exactly come to a romantic couples retreat." The words hit me like ice water. Someone needs to watch them. Right, perfect timing that you're here. Hannah's face lit up like she'd just solved world hunger. It all worked out so perfectly. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the just kidding, anything to indicate this was some sort of twisted joke. But Hannah was already moving on, rummaging through cabinets. The kids are super easy. Emma likes the shaped mac and cheese, not regular. Tyler gets cranky with too much screen time, but honestly, just let him play his games. I'll be back the day after Christmas. Hannah. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. Are you telling me that you and Mom planned a Christmas vacation? Knowing I was flying here, and just assumed I'd babysit? It's not babysitting when it's family, she said, still digging through the pantry. Besides, you love the kids. That's when she turned around with a box of Pop-Tarts in her hand, grinned at me like we were sharing the world's best inside joke, and delivered the line that would change everything. Finally, a free babysitter for Christmas. She actually laughed. Like it was hilarious. I stood in that kitchen, listening to Hannah laugh at her own joke about me being free labor, and something inside me went perfectly still. Not angry, not hurt, just still. Like standing in the eye of a hurricane where everything around you is chaos, but you're suspended in this weird calm space. A free babysitter, I repeated, my voice completely flat. I mean, come on, Hannah was still grinning, popping a Pop-Tart into the toaster. You don't have kids, no husband, and you're already here. It's absolutely perfect. Perfect. Right. Absolutely perfect. Mom appeared in the doorway, car keys jingling in her hand like sleigh bells. I'm heading out now. Hannah, you have my number for emergencies. Georgia, thank you so much for this. You're such a lifesaver. And just like that, they were both treating it like a done deal. Like I'd already agreed. Like my consent was some minor detail they'd forgotten to mention but didn't really need anyway. I'll call tonight to check on the kids, Mom added, already halfway out the door. Emergency numbers are on the fridge. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Hannah's Pop-Tart popped up with a cheerful ding. Emma and Tyler continued watching cartoons in the living room, completely oblivious to the fact that their mother and grandmother had just orchestrated what I was beginning to realize was an elaborate con job. That's when I noticed the papers scattered on the table near where Mom had left her purse, forgotten in her rush to start her well-deserved vacation. Confirmation emails, the kind of detailed itinerary that obsessive planners print out and highlight and reorganize 17 times. My hands were perfectly steady as I picked up the first page. Pinewood Springs Resort and Spa. Premium suite reservation for December 24-26. Total cost, $1,847. I kept reading. Hannah's flight confirmation. December 23rd. One-way ticket from our local airport to the tiny regional airport near the resort. Cost, $340. More papers. David's flight information. Apparently, Hannah's ex-husband was meeting them there from his business trip. Spa package for 2 people. Dinner reservations at a restaurant that required 3 weeks advance booking. This wasn't spontaneous. This was military-level planning that had been in motion for weeks, maybe months. Every detail arranged, every expense calculated and paid for while they were calling me with their desperate pleas about missing me and needing me home for Christmas. The dates on these reservations made everything crystal clear. Late October bookings. Just 2 weeks before Mom started her emotional campaign to get me home. That's when it hit me like a freight train. I wasn't invited home for Christmas. I was recruited. Recruited to be the help. Hannah left at 10:30 sharp, practically floating with excitement about her surprise Christmas vacation. Surprise to me. Anyway, she pecked the kids goodbye, reminded me about Tyler's bedtime routine, and was out the door before I could fully process what was happening. The moment her car disappeared down the street, I decided it was time for some answers. Hannah had always been disorganized, leaving important papers scattered around the house. Mom's office was the same cluttered space where she paid bills and printed endless documents for everything. I wasn't snooping. I was conducting a very necessary investigation of evidence left in plain sight. The first thing I found was a manila folder on Mom's desk labeled Christmas Plans. Apparently, she was even more organized than I'd realized. Inside were printed email exchanges between Hannah and Mom about the resort reservation, going back 2 full months. Can't wait for our Christmas getaway, Mom had written in late October. Finally, some peace and quiet. Perfect timing that Georgia's coming home, Hannah had replied. Free childcare worked out perfectly. There it was, in actual writing. My invitation home wasn't about family togetherness or anyone missing me. It was about securing convenient, unpaid babysitting services. But that was just the beginning. Hannah had apparently been printing financial documents at Mom's house. Her own printer had been broken for months. Stack after stack of bank statements, organized by month, sitting right there in the open. I started reading, looking for evidence of the financial struggles she was always crying about. The struggles that meant I needed to wire money every month to help with groceries and keep the lights on. What I found instead made my stomach drop to the basement. Regular deposits. Every single month. Substantial ones. All clearly labeled child support. D. Matthews. David Matthews, her ex-husband, Tyler and Emma's father. The payments were consistent, reliable, and generous. Enough to cover rent, groceries, utilities, and basic expenses for a family of 3. Hannah had been receiving substantial child support this entire time, while simultaneously taking money from me, while crying about being a struggling single mother, while letting me skip dinners out and buy generic groceries so I could send her emergency funds. The final piece was a printed email from David, dated 3 weeks ago. Christmas payment early this month as discussed. Extra included for kids' gifts. Have a great holiday. She had money. She'd always had money. The struggling single mother performance was exactly that. A performance designed to squeeze additional funds out of me while she and Mom planned their secret Christmas vacation. I sat back in Mom's desk chair, staring at the evidence scattered across the surface. Everything finally made perfect, horrible sense. I spent the rest of that afternoon in Mom's office, going through more of the documents scattered around her workspace. If Hannah was disorganized with financial papers, Mom was practically documenting her entire life on paper. Filing cabinets, desk drawers, and organized folders told quite the story. Her bank statements were neatly filed in a folder labeled Monthly Finances. Apparently, she printed everything for her records. Regular deposits beyond just the pension she was always complaining barely covered her expenses. A substantial life insurance payout from Dad's death 2 years ago that she'd somehow never mentioned during any of our conversations about her financial struggles. Investment account summaries I didn't even know existed. Property income statements from Dad's old rental house. The same house she told me she'd been forced to sell because of overwhelming financial pressure. Plot twist. She hadn't sold anything. The rental income alone was covering most of her monthly expenses. Then came the credit card statements, meticulously organized by month. Resort stays throughout the year, spa treatments, weekend trips with her book club friends, premium grocery shopping at the expensive stores, all charged to the same card where she claimed to be drowning in minimum payments. The same card I'd been sending money to help her stay afloat. The absolute final piece was a printed letter from her financial advisor, dated exactly 1 week ago, sitting prominently on her desk. A routine portfolio review showing healthy investment returns, and what the advisor cheerfully described as a very comfortable retirement position. The phrase financially secure appeared 3 times in a single paragraph. I did the math with shaking hands. Mom's pension, plus Dad's life insurance money, plus rental property income, plus investment returns. She was making more money now as a widow than she'd made when Dad was alive and working. Add Hannah's reliable child support to her situation, and both of them were living quite comfortably, while spinning elaborate tales of financial hardship. For 3 solid years, I'd been sending a combined total of $800 monthly between the two of them. Money I'd scraped together by eating ramen noodles for dinner, skipping social events because I couldn't afford them, and taking freelance work on weekends when I should have been resting. Money they'd been spending on vacations and spa treatments while I worked myself into exhaustion, trying to help family members who weren't actually struggling at all. Looking back at the resort confirmations, I could see the timeline clearly now. The Christmas vacation was booked in late October. Mom's emotional campaign to get me home had started in early November, just 2 weeks after they'd secured their romantic getaway. This Christmas resort vacation cost more than what I sent them in 3 months combined. They could afford it easily. They just preferred to afford it with my money subsidizing their regular expenses, so they had more left over for luxuries. I gathered all the evidence, making neat stacks of the most damning documents. Bank statements, printed emails, resort confirmations, financial advisor letters. The proof was overwhelming and absolutely devastating. At 4 p.m., Tyler wandered in asking when Mommy was coming home. Tomorrow, I told him, which was technically true. Hannah would be back the day after Christmas, but I wouldn't be here to see her return. I was already planning my exit strategy. They wanted a free babysitter? They were about to learn exactly how expensive free could be. Christmas Eve morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. feeling clearer than I had in years. While Emma and Tyler slept peacefully upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table with my printed evidence spread out like a legal brief, sipping coffee and waiting for the perfect moment. Hannah appeared first, around 8:30, already dressed and glowing with anticipation for her day at the spa. She grabbed yogurt from the fridge and started chattering about how excited she was for the couple's massage package. David texted that he's already at the resort, she said, practically bouncing. The weather's supposed to be perfect for the outdoor hot tubs. That sounds lovely, I said calmly, sliding the first bank statement across the table. Almost as lovely as these regular child support payments you've been receiving. Hannah's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. She stared at the paper, her face cycling through confusion, recognition, and finally panic. Georgia, I can explain. Please do. I placed another statement next to the first. Explain how you've been receiving over $2,000 monthly in child support while telling me you can barely afford groceries. Mom walked in at that exact moment, wheeling her suitcase and checking her phone for flight updates. She took one look at the papers on the table and went completely still. What is this? She asked, though her tone suggested she knew exactly what it was. This, I said, adding her financial advisor's email to the collection, is a family meeting about honesty. Mom, would you like to explain to Hannah why you told me you were struggling to make pension payments while sitting on a six-figure investment portfolio? The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Neither of them attempted to deny anything. They just stood there, caught red-handed, waiting to see what I would do with the information. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice steady and calm. You two are going to go on your lovely Christmas vacation. You're going to enjoy every moment of your spa treatments and romantic dinners. And when you get back, you're going to find that I'm no longer available for babysitting services or monthly financial contributions. Hannah found her voice first. Georgia, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that you both view me as a resource to be managed rather than a family member to be loved. I understand that this entire Christmas invitation was a setup to get free childcare. And I understand that I'm done being your personal ATM. Mom stepped forward, her face flushing red. Now wait just a minute, young lady. No, you wait. The steel in my own voice surprised me. I'm going upstairs to pack. I'm leaving today. The children will come with me to a hotel until you return from your vacation, or you can cancel your trip and take care of your own responsibilities. The explosion, when it came, was spectacular. You can't be serious, Hannah shrieked, her voice climbing to a pitch that probably alarmed dogs 3 blocks away. Georgia, the reservations are non-refundable. We can't cancel now. Then you have a problem, I replied, standing up and gathering my printed evidence. Because I'm not solving it for you. Mom's face had gone from flushed to purple. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Abandoning family when they need you most? The sheer audacity of that statement almost made me laugh out loud. Everything you've done for me? Like lying about your finances so I'd send money? Like tricking me into flying across the country to babysit while you go on vacation? Those children are your niece and nephew. Hannah was crying now, mascara starting to run down her cheeks. You can't just abandon them. I'm not abandoning them. I'm refusing to provide free childcare that you should have arranged yourself. I headed for the stairs, but Mom grabbed my arm. Georgia Marie, if you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back. Family means sacrifice. It means putting others first. I turned to look at her, this woman who had raised me to believe that my worth was measured by how much I could give up for others' comfort. You're right about family meaning sacrifice, Mom. I've just been the only one making them. Please, Hannah's voice broke. I haven't had a vacation in years. I haven't been away from the kids in months. I need this break. Then you should have planned for proper childcare instead of assuming I'd provide it for free. I pulled my arm free from Mom's grip. I'm going upstairs to pack. You have 15 minutes to decide if you're canceling your trip or finding alternative arrangements for your children. The screaming followed me up the stairs. Hannah was having what could only be described as a complete meltdown, sobbing about ruined plans and wasted money. Mom was yelling about ingratitude and family loyalty. Through it all, I could hear Emma and Tyler's bedroom door creak open as they woke up to the chaos. I packed quickly, throwing clothes into my suitcase with the efficiency of someone who'd made an irreversible decision. My phone buzzed with a text from the airline app. For an extra $600. I could fly out that evening instead of after Christmas. $600. 3 weeks ago, that would have been devastating. Now, knowing where my monthly contributions had actually been going, it felt like buying my freedom. I booked the flight. Downstairs, the argument had evolved into desperate bargaining. I could hear Hannah on the phone, probably calling David to explain why their romantic Christmas getaway was imploding in real time. When I came back down with my suitcase, both women turned to me with identical expressions of desperate fury. Mrs. Peterson next door agreed to watch the kids today, Mom announced, like she was granting me some enormous favor. What about tonight? Tomorrow? The day after? I asked. This isn't a day trip. More frantic phone calls. More tears. More accusations about my selfishness. But apparently Mrs. Peterson wasn't available for a multi-day arrangement, and the local babysitting services were all booked for the holiday. I'll be at the airport in 2 hours, I said, walking toward the door. Good luck finding childcare. I hear it's expensive when you actually have to pay for it. You can't leave. Hannah blocked the door, her face streaked with tears and desperation. Georgia, please. What am I supposed to tell David? What am I supposed to tell the resort? Tell them the truth, I said, stepping around her. Tell them your free babysitter quit. That's when Mom played her final card, the one she'd been saving for maximum impact. If you walk out that door, you're no longer my daughter. I mean it, Georgia. This family doesn't need someone so selfish and vindictive. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. For just a moment, the old Georgia considered backing down, apologizing, staying to fix everyone else's problems like I always did. Then I turned around and looked at both of them. Really looked. Hannah, who hadn't worked a day in 9 years but somehow deserved spa vacations funded by my grocery money. Mom, who had more money than I did but let me stress about rent while she planned weekend getaways with friends. You're absolutely right, I said quietly. This family doesn't need someone like me. Someone who asks questions, someone who expects honesty, someone who has boundaries. You need someone who'll just keep sending money and asking no questions. I opened the door, feeling winter air rush in. Lucky for you, you won't have to worry about me anymore. The screaming followed me to my rental car. Threats, guilt trips, desperate promises that things would change if I'd just stay. But I was done listening. I'd heard it all before, and I finally understood that the words meant nothing. The drive to the airport should have felt devastating. Instead, with every mile between me and that house, I felt lighter. By the time I reached the highway, I was actually smiling. I called Jake from the airport gate. Change of plans, I said when he answered. I'm coming home early. Want to have Christmas Eve dinner? What happened to the family Christmas you were so excited about? Turns out my family had different plans for me than I had for them. I watched my gate number appear on the departure board. But I have better plans now. I'll pick up wine, Jake said immediately. Emma and Sarah have been texting about missing you anyway. That's when I started crying. Not from sadness, but from relief. There were people who actually wanted my company, not my services. People who missed me when I was gone, not my bank transfers. The flight home was the most peaceful 4 hours I'd experienced in years. No phone buzzing with requests for money, no guilt about not doing enough for others. Just me, a good book, and the knowledge that I was finally choosing myself. I landed at 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve and found Jake waiting with flowers and the biggest smile. Welcome home, he said, and for the first time in my adult life, home wasn't a place where I owed someone something. It was a place where I was simply wanted. Christmas morning with Jake, Emma, and Sarah was everything I'd imagined a real holiday could be. We exchanged thoughtful gifts, cooked together, laughed until our sides hurt, and nobody expected me to send money to anyone or babysit anyone's kids for free. Sarah had made her famous cinnamon rolls. Emma brought champagne for mimosas. Jake surprised us all with a playlist of terrible Christmas songs from the 80s that had us dancing in the kitchen like idiots. This is what Christmas is supposed to feel like, I told them as we sat around Jake's table, stuffed and happy. You mean it's not supposed to feel like unpaid labor? Emma asked with perfect timing, making us all dissolve into laughter again. My phone buzzed occasionally throughout the day. Texts from Hannah ranging from angry to pleading to furious again. A few missed calls from Mom. I deleted them all without reading past the first few words. Whatever crisis they were having was no longer my emergency to solve. But the real consequences of my decision wouldn't become clear until the following months, when the money I'd been sending them every month simply stopped coming. January was apparently when reality hit Hannah the hardest. Without my monthly contribution, she discovered that David's child support, while substantial, actually only covered the real costs of raising 2 children. Food, clothes, school supplies, medical expenses, activities. It all added up to exactly what he was already providing. For the first time in 9 years, Hannah had to face the fact that she couldn't afford the lifestyle she'd been living without additional income. The lifestyle my money had been funding. February brought panicked phone calls that I didn't answer and desperate voicemails that I deleted. Hannah had apparently tried to get a credit card for emergencies and been turned down due to having no employment history and no independent income. March was when she finally admitted defeat and started looking for work. I heard this through my cousin Rachel, who called to ask if I knew why Hannah was suddenly applying for retail jobs with no experience and a 9-year gap in her resume. She's having a hard time, Rachel said carefully. Apparently the job market is tough when you've never actually worked. I felt a brief flash of something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the Christmas vacation they'd enjoyed while I was supposed to be providing free childcare, and the feeling passed. I'm sure she'll figure it out, I told Rachel. Hannah's always been resourceful when she needs to be. What I didn't say was that Hannah had been resourceful for 9 years. She'd just been using her resources to manipulate money out of me instead of earning it herself. April brought news that Hannah had finally found a job at a local department store. Part-time, minimum wage, but it was something. According to Rachel, she was struggling with the schedule and the physical demands of being on her feet all day. "It's such a big adjustment for her," Rachel said. "She's not used to working." "Most people start working in their teens," I replied. "She'll adapt." May was when I learned that Mom had stepped in with her own ultimatum. The full scope of how my absence affected their carefully constructed system became clear through a phone call from my cousin Rachel in May. She'd been visiting Mom and had quite the story to tell. "Georgia, I don't know what happened between you all, but the dynamics over there have completely changed," Rachel said. "Your mom basically told Hannah that if she and the kids want to keep living there, Hannah has to earn her keep. Apparently, without my monthly financial contributions, Mom had decided she wasn't interested in supporting another adult woman indefinitely. The terms she'd laid out were specific and non-negotiable. Hannah could continue living in the house with Emma and Tyler, but she had to handle all the housework, grocery shopping, cooking, and general maintenance. She also had to contribute $200 monthly toward utilities and groceries, money that had to come from her new retail job. "It's like watching a whole new family dynamic," Rachel continued. "Hannah's working at that department store, coming home exhausted, then having to clean the house and make dinner while your mom sits in her recliner watching her shows." The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom had spent years convincing me that family meant sacrifice, that I needed to put others first, that my financial contributions were necessary for everyone's survival. Now she was applying those same principles to Hannah, just without the monthly guilt trips and emotional manipulation she'd used on me. "How's Hannah handling it?" I asked, though I could guess. "Not well. She keeps saying it's not fair, that she's not used to working so hard, that she never signed up for this. But your mom just tells her that's what being an adult means." The same lessons Mom could have taught Hannah years ago, instead of letting her live as a kept woman while I unknowingly funded the arrangement. "And the kids? They're fine, actually. Probably better than before. Hannah's home more now, more involved in their daily routines. She has to be. She can't just disappear for shopping trips or social lunches anymore." By June, I heard through the family grapevine that Hannah was working full-time and had gotten a small promotion. Still struggling, still complaining about how hard everything was, but functioning as an independent adult for the first time in her life. Mom, meanwhile, was thriving. Her money was her own again. She'd joined a senior travel group and had taken 3 weekend trips since spring. No financial stress, no guilt about leaving Hannah and the kids, no pretense of struggling. She'd never needed my money. She'd wanted it because having it meant more fun money for herself while ensuring someone else dealt with Hannah's long-term dependency. The system had worked perfectly for both of them, until I stopped participating. Now they had each other to negotiate with, and apparently neither of them liked the terms as much when they couldn't manipulate a third party into providing the resources. A year later, I'm sitting in my own apartment on Christmas Eve, wrapping gifts for Jake, Emma, and Sarah. Real gifts, thoughtful ones. Purchased without stress or resentment, because I can actually afford them now that I'm not sending $800 monthly to people who didn't need it. My savings account shows a balance I've never seen before. I've paid off my credit card debt, bought myself a decent car, and even started contributing to a retirement fund. Turns out, I was never bad with money. I was just giving too much of it away. Rachel still updates me occasionally on the family situation. Hannah is apparently doing well at her job, even making some work friends. The kids are thriving with more structure and attention from their mother. Mom continues traveling and enjoying her retirement exactly as she did before, just without pretending to need anyone's financial help. Nobody has apologized. Not Hannah for lying about her finances, not Mom for orchestrating the Christmas babysitting scam, not either of them for years of emotional manipulation disguised as family loyalty. But I wasn't expecting apologies. People don't apologize for systems that worked exactly as designed. I think about calling them sometimes, usually during holidays or when something reminds me of a good childhood memory. Then I remember that the relationship they want isn't with me. It's with my bank account and my willingness to solve their problems. Some people love you for who you are. Others love you for what you provide. Learning to tell the difference might be the most valuable lesson I've ever learned. Jake comes over around 6, carrying wine and wearing the ridiculous Christmas sweater I bought him last year. "How was work?" he asks, kissing my cheek as he hangs up his coat. "Good. Busy. I think I'm getting promoted again in January." The words come out easily, without the old undercurrent of anxiety about whether I'd be able to afford the celebration or if I'd have to send the extra money elsewhere. "We should celebrate," he says, then grins. "Unless you have other plans for your money." I laugh, the sound genuine and light. "Nope, my money is my money now." Funny how that works. Later, as we sit by his tree sharing Chinese takeout and terrible holiday movies, I think about the Georgia who flew across the country last Christmas with hope and savings and naive faith and family love. She was a good person. She deserved better than being treated like an ATM with emotions. This Georgia, the one who learned to say no, who set boundaries, who chose herself for once, she's better. Not because she's harder or meaner, but because she finally understands the difference between being loved and being used. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the ability to walk away from people who don't actually want you there. Merry Christmas to me. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt taken for granted by family. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about finding your strength and choosing yourself first.